Hey guys, RW here, Little Mountain. Got a package here from Gary Cola at BainiteSteel.com. I'm going to give you links to him so you can contact him. And he just contacted me to let me know that he had just started shipping his patented splatter shield, and he said he would send me something right away. This is the knife I'm going to be pimping for Viva La Bam. I notice it has little hairs all over it, so I'm assuming the man has been shaving with this knife by the looks of it. So I'm assuming this knife is pretty frickin' sharp. Appears to be relatively frickin' sharp. Look at that, huh? So inside here, from the weight of it, it feels like I've got a complete unit. I've got a look at it go through that packing tape like it isn't even there. Wow, this is a nice knife. Well, I sure hope it don't slip and cut the heck out of my leg. That would be no fun at all. Wow, that's kind of scaring me. Oh, Lord have mercy. Yeah, if that thing sucker slips, I'm going to end up going to the hospital. This thing could take your damn leg off. That's one hell of a knife, man. So anyway, let's get this thing open. But what I was about to say here is this is a complete plate that has been installed at BainiteSteel.com to Gary's specification. This is a plate that he sent me at no charge for me to test. Okay. He also knows that when I test stuff, I really test it. I don't. You know, I'm not trying to sell his product. I'm testing his product. And if I like it, I'm definitely going to buy some for my inventory and sell it to you guys. Just to do it. Sell it with a plate carrier, I reckon. Wow. 10 pounds is what he says this ends up weighing. Okay. Very nice. Very nice. Look at that. Boy, that is really shiny. Wow. Last time he sent me a plate, it was black. That plate is shiny. That's very nice. So this is what stops splatter. Okay, now I've had people that don't know what they're talking about tell me that splatter is spall and spall is splatter, but just Google it. Okay, don't argue with me here on my own channel. That's silly. If you don't know what spall is, we're not testing spall when we shoot things with small arms. Okay, you want to shoot it with a 20 mil. You want to hit it with a frag grenade. You may be testing for spall, because if the plate fails, it will send shards at you from the plate. That would be spall. But a real concern for people that wear armor is splatter. Okay, because what splatter is when a bullet strikes this. Okay, it's going to follow. It's very weird how ricochets work, but you can look this up. But I'm just going to tell you how it is. When a bullet hits something like an immovable object, like a piece of steel that doesn't deform very much, it is going to follow the surface of that steel when it explodes. So the round hits and it literally explodes in a 360-degree spray of jacketing and lead that follow the actual plate. Even if the plate's curved, it follows it. It's just the way it is, guys. So what you need to do to stop splatter is you need to stop that motion of the exploded jacket fragments and all that, and the lead and the gases. They're all trying to go out the edges. And that's what's going to kill you. That's what's going to hit your neck, hit your groin, hit your arms, hit your legs, hit your partner who's leaning over you to take a shot, cut him up. So in order to survive the round, it's not just about will it go through the steel, because obviously it won't. We've already tested that. But can you contain the fragments, and can it take multiple hits? Because if it doesn't, then you'd want to go back to something like a ceramic plate. Problem with ceramic plate is after a few hits, that's it. Okay. This is also more cost effective than a ceramic plate, and it's much more durable, and it can be field repaired. So there's a lot of pluses over this, despite the fact that it weighs 3 times as much as a ceramic plate. Okay, so what you're getting is something that's about 1/3 the cost and will hold up to, I would imagine, maybe 100 rounds of being shot at by the looks of it. But we'll find out. So what are we looking at? We're looking at a heavy gauge. Okay, can you see the gauge on that? That is heavy gauge, this frame. Okay, and this is what stops the fragmenting. So the gauge of this is critical. This is a piece of 1/4-inch urethane. Okay, and what this does is make sure that there's no backsplash. Everything that goes in stays in, and then is conducted into the frame. Now there are some gases which have to be dealt with when this gets an explosion of lead and jacketing. There's also going to be gases and dusts and stuff that make this want to bulge up. So multiple hits, and eventually the urethane from ballooning pulls out a little bit. I found that out from other testing that we did. Okay. But if this is secured well in here, okay, this should be able to take any number of hits. Urethane is almost self-healing. So the urethane itself is not going to be an issue. And judging by the thickness of this frame, I don't think this is going to fail. Okay, thinner metal will get pierced by jacketing, like from a 308 or something. And eventually thinner metal will also bulge up and deform just from constant slag being pushed into the corners. This is just from my own testing. Okay. Now let's look at the back of it. Okay, what have we got on the back? Oh, nice. All sealed up. Okay. Okay, nice. Okay, this frame doesn't have any gaps in it. Okay. Which, from my own testing, I've found that if you have any kind of gaps in the frame, gussets, anything that's got any kind of a chance to act as a conduit for this explosion of jacketing and lead, it's going to come out through little holes. So, for instance, if you had any kind of a hole here, there would be a little spray out of there or whatever. And by not having any holes whatsoever, okay, you have completely eliminated the chance for spray. Now, I did a lot of testing with a prototype plate. Now, I did not put those tests online because those tests were not representative of what Gary's selling. This is what Gary's selling, and I'm going to be testing this thoroughly. But I tested a prototype, and I helped Gary correct some issues with it, and gave him my thoughts, and then he came up with his own ways of fixing everything and making it so that it would work correctly. But if you use, for instance, a lighter gauge, or if you were to just spray on a liner or whatever, what happens is when you get closer to the edge with your shots, you get tear out. For instance, if this were just Rhino liner, like Target Man LLC does, or some other guys do, they just take some AR500, Brinell 500 plate, and they crease it. They go clunk, 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 and they put 4 creases in it with a brake to give it kind of a curve. And then they get in there with the plasma torch or whatever, and they cut off the edges, and then they grind them, you know, and then they spray it all with Line-X, okay? Yeah, that's fine for what they're able to do, okay? Because they're basically like you or me, you know? They're working out of a small shop, and they're just cutting steel and banging it around with the stuff that they've got. Gary, okay, he's got a state-of-the-art facility, and he spares no expense to make the best possible product. You can see that that's a true radius. This plate has been curved using a 450-ton single radius die. Okay, so this steel is crushed into a perfect radius using a die and a press. The edges underneath here, if you were to just buy the steel, I can show you how nice his steel is. The edges are all stamped. These pieces are made like they are made in a factory. They're not made like they're made in a small shop by some guy with a plasma torch and a grinder. Okay, it's just a completely different product. And his prices are competitive with everybody out there. So that's why I was real interested in Gary. Is first of all, his steel is superior. Okay, let's start with just the steel. If you don't know what Flash Bainite is, I suggest you go to bainitesteel.com or Google Flash Bainite and find out what Flash Bainite is. It's an amazing process for making steel that uses a lot less energy, is a lot faster, and you can get the specific amount of martensite and bainite, which is the hard and the ductile parts of steel, in the right combination, right where you want. And that's what he's done. He has created an AR500 plate that performs better than Brinell 500 rated AR500 other people are selling. His steel is better. Okay, I'm not just making this shit up. I've tested it. I've shown everybody. Anybody that's tested his steel will agree. Flash Bainite TM Flash AR500. Okay, the best steel for armor out there. Period. That's not even a question in my mind. What I was very interested in with Gary, and what Gary has been working on, what I've tried to help him work on, is splatter mitigation. Because there's really no sense in wearing a piece of steel if, when you get hit one time by one rifle round, it cuts your throat open, cuts your arms open, cuts your legs open, and now everybody's tending you instead of being in the fight, and you're bleeding out on the floor. Okay, the purpose of this is to keep you in the fight. Okay, to protect your life. You know, like a law enforcement guy, he's going in the door. Maybe he can't afford, $800 worth of ceramic plates, but he could probably afford $300 worth of steel plates, even though they're super heavy. Okay, these are 10 pounds. So you got to think about that. There's the weight involved, but there's the durability of it, and the fact that it can take multiple hits, which is what I'll be testing. Okay. Now the testing protocol on this, okay, it's got to be perpendicular. Okay. When I first got a plate from Gary, and he sent me, and it had an all-metal shield and everything, that thing worked great, but he was trying to find something that would work better. So he sent me one of his very first prototypes, which was an all-steel splatter shield. And all I did was I leaned it up against a hay bale like this, okay, and then I laid on the ground with my bipod, and I shot it. So you could see I'm hitting it at maybe a 20-degree angle. And what that does is that creates a different effect where almost all of the splatter is going to go whichever direction the angle is least acute. So here it is, hitting here, it's going to go up here, and of course it's just going to blow out the frame because it's all going there. All testing, like JUAS type testing, is done with 0 oblique. That means as perpendicular and as straight on right-left as you can possibly get. So if this plate was here, my muzzle of my rifle would also need to be at the same elevation and at the same angle to give this a fair test, like a man shooting at a man standing, like two men standing facing each other shooting at each other. That's what this plate needs to be tested like. So before I do my tests, I'm going to do several things to ensure a 0 oblique, okay, as best I can without using lasers and stuff. As a builder, I can do a lot of work with strings and water levels. So I'm going to set up an actual test rig to hold this plate. Okay. Another thing I was doing before is I was covering this plate, okay, and I was covering this plate in a box, and then it made it very difficult for me to know exactly where to shoot this thing, okay, because it's slightly bigger than the box, as you can. I mean, the box is bigger, so you know you've got a little. It's pretty close. I mean, if you hit the dead center of the box, you should pretty much hit the dead center of the panel. But I think I'm going to come up with a different way of demonstrating splatter, other than using a completely opaque cover. And I'm thinking that maybe wrapping this in butcher paper would be a pretty good way of showing all the effects it has, you know. People always are saying, why don't you put it in a plate carrier? I bet ballistic cloth does this, that, or the other thing. But guess what? None of those people have ever sent me their plate carrier to shoot holes in. It's funny. It's funny how people always are willing to suggest things that cost me money, but they're not willing to send me their stuff that costs them money. So if you have any suggestions that involve destroying things, okay, send those things along, and I'll be glad to destroy them. Let's just put it at that, okay? Otherwise, I'm just going to try and do an extremely accurate, completely oblique shot, okay, hit this panel dead in the center with a 308, and then examine it for splatter. I'm going to try, at this time, I have 3 functioning cameras. Can you believe it? So I'm going to try and have all 3 cameras set up and running and shooting at it so that we can see as much as we possibly can of everything that's happening. You can see the angle of the shot, you can see the effect of the shot, and then also I will, of course, examine it and see if there's any kind of splatter that escapes, okay, from the edges when the round is destroyed by striking the plate. Then, once I've done that, I want to repeat that test, okay? And I think 308 is a great test. It's a very powerful round. It's comparable to many other rounds that are being used out there, and it's more powerful than a lot of the rounds that this plate would come up against. So hammering this with multiple 308 shots, okay, just to see how it performs from the center, see how the urethane holds up, see how the frame holds up, and then maybe try a couple of edge shots just to see how close you can get to the edge and still keep things from blowing out. Like, let's say 1.5 inches, something like that. Try a couple of edge shots, okay? And then once all of that has done its thing with the most powerful round I've got, then test some other things at it and see how it performs to handling multiple shots. From my other testing, okay, when I hammered this with 100 9mm jacketed rounds, the slag buildup gets out of control. It just, I mean, of course, if you're in a firefight where you've been hit in the chest 100 times by a 9mm, I think you probably have more things to worry about than the fact that your splatter mitigation shield will need to be replaced, okay? You're just glad to survive it. So as long as it continues to trap slag, I don't care if this urethane blows all the way out. I'm just curious to see at what point will this fail. So I'm going to keep a shot count going. I'm not just going to blaze away at it. I'm going to see how many times this thing has to be shot before it fails. Now, as far as rifle rounds go, I have 308. That's it. And I've got 12 gauge shotgun, which puts a real wallop on this plate. I've already tested these plates, and when you hit it with a Foster slug, it warps the whole plate. It doesn't make a big dimple. It actually just kind of puts so much energy into the whole plate, the plate kind of shocks and deforms a little bit. Buck really creates a huge slag buildup right away because those big 32 caliber pellets going all in there. So buckshot is probably something that you would definitely want to be protected by, and I already know that this will protect you from buckshot, including the splatter mitigation. Looks like this would definitely do it. As long as there's no holes, no creases, and everything's tacked down in the back and it all holds together, I think you've really got something. So this is a really nice looking package, Gary, and I really appreciate you sending this to me for testing. I'm going to give it the most accurate, thorough testing I can. I'm going to test it with rifle rounds. I'm going to test it with pistol rounds. I'm going to test it with shotgun rounds. And then I'm going to test it, I don't know if I can test it to destruction because honestly there is just not that much ammo available to me in my area. Maybe other people can go to the store and go buy 500-600 rounds of ammo and do a test. Unfortunately, where I'm at right now, I would be lucky if I could go buy 150 rounds of ammo at a Walmart, you know, per day, if they had it, which they don't. But I do have a stash of ammo, which I've been holding on to just for these tests, and I will be able to blaze into this with at least 100 rounds, maybe 200-300 rounds of 9, depending on how many shots it would take for this to completely fail. And I just think that'd be interesting just to show the durability of it, because I can guarantee you that if you shoot a piece of rhino liner plate with 100 rounds of 9, pretty soon it's all just gonna be just a shred of crap. And the whole purpose of the rhino liner is to slow those fragments down. So once your rhino liner is all shredded and falling off of the steel, it ain't doing nothing. It's dead weight. With this, even though this weighs a lot, man, as long as that steel frame stays in place, this thing is going to continue containing splatter, and you could get many, 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 many rounds stopped by this. So thanks a lot again to Gary Cola, okay? And I appreciate you guys hanging out for this super long video, but it's been a long time coming. I've been waiting about a month and a half for Gary to get these out to me. He's been working hard on trying to develop the best splatter mitigation that he could come up with. His steel is currently being evaluated for use by the Army, and I think it's an awesome, awesome product. I'm proud to be part of testing it, and I very much encourage you all to check out BainiteSteel.com. Here's an entrepreneur who's been working for 2 decades to bring a special kind of steel to the market, and of course he's fighting an uphill battle. So you know, there's a lot of entrenched interests in the steel industry, and so when some guy comes along and says, no, you're doing it wrong, you're going to have an uphill battle. But I really believe in Gary, and I believe in his steel, and I want to support him, and that's why I'm here promoting BainiteSteel.com. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for some serious ballistic testing of the Flash Bainite Armor TM Flash AR500. Thanks a lot.